Mike and Alex, back over to you.
All right, let's get into these two cases here in court. 733.
The Pennsylvania man accused of killing 4 college students in Idaho has agreed to plead guilty in their murders, avoiding the death penalty.
Yeah, you know his name, Bryan Kohberger. We've talked about him for years now. Will now spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. Apparently, he didn't want to die. He's accused of killing those 4 students in Idaho, University of Idaho. This was all the way back in November 13th of 2022. They were found dead in their off-campus residence after being brutally stabbed to death.
So we want to bring in, and there he is, attorney Shaka Johnson to break this down for us. And we're also going to talk about the deliberations happening, and we'll resume in a little bit for the Diddy trial. But let's start with Kohberger. And is it like Mike said, he just didn't want to die, so he's like, okay, let's make a plea deal.
Writing was on the wall, he thinks?
It got on the wall late in the game, right?
Yeah.
You have to remember the judge's rulings. One ruling was no continuance, despite the fact that defense attorney Ann Taylor was really trying to make an impassioned plea for more time. And number 2 was that the judge said that he cannot use an alternate perpetrator defense, right? And so that really put a hole in the bottom of the boat.
What does that mean, alternate perpetrator?
That means you're not saying it was me, it was these other people. And he'd outlined 4 people. The defense had outlined 4 folks that they said were responsible, not likely to be responsible, but were responsible for this particular heinous crime. But the judge looked at the evidence and said, no, you're grasping at straws. I'm not going to let you do that. And Idaho law is very, very succinct on that one point. You just can't throw things at the wall. Not only do you have to name the people, but then you as a defendant have to show the nexus between those people and the crime.
It's an interesting decision. I was just wondering, what would I do in that position? Would you go ahead and roll the dice, even though the odds are against you, to try to somehow get out of it, or you just want to be alive so much you'll spend the rest of your life in jail?
You know, there are different schools of thought on that, right? There's alive, and then there's living, right?
Yeah.
And if you're alive but in jail, some people would rather, like you indicated, roll the dice, and maybe you'll get a jury 25 from the Diddy trial, right? Someone who will sort of thwart the apple cart.
So was Kohberger, that case is done?
That case is all but done. On July 2nd, the judge is supposed to take that plea, so the writing is perpetually on the wall.
Yeah, okay.
So let's get over to the Diddy case, because in about an hour and a half, they're going to start deliberating again. But yesterday was quite eventful. Usually when it comes to juries deliberating, everyone just sits and waits.
Yes.
But they had a number of notes, as they call it.
Correct.
So explain to people, if they're not familiar with what that means, what does it mean when a juror sends out a note to
Absolutely.
the judge?
When jurors go into the back and start deliberating, the first thing they do is pick a foreperson. That foreperson is the liaison between the jury and the court. They don't have any extra voting power, but they are the person who writes these notes, these messages to the court, sort of being the conduit between the jurors and the court. Already, there have been some notes that have come out from the foreperson. And the first one, I think, is the most alarming, right? Because the first one indicated that they were not all playing in the sandbox together the way in which the jurors are supposed to.
And I believe we have specifically what was put up, and it's going to be on the screen in a second.
Well, it sounds like 11 of them were ready to go with a verdict like that.
I don't know about that one, Mike. I don't think so, right? Because 7 weeks of testimony. By the time jurors get established, vote for a foreperson, pick a foreperson, and then sort of like take that initial vote and just sort of getting things together in terms of parsing through all 5 of these charges, an hour would have passed. I don't think they were ready to give a verdict on any of the charges, but you have to participate, here's the language, in good faith in your deliberations.
So let's put back up so we can show what they said. One juror, and I'm assuming this is from the foreperson, right, said, one juror who we are concerned about cannot follow your Honor's instructions. May I please speak with your Honor, or may you please interview him? So what is that saying? Is that saying as they're deliberating, this person just isn't speaking, or they're over in a corner?
It seems to indicate that person is refusing to do exactly what we ask jurors to do, which is participate in the process. So you have to engage. You can have your own convictions, and you can sort of be, in your own head, listen, I know what I'm going to do, but you have to participate with the others.
So what options do they have then? then? Can they take this juror off the panel there? And they have alternates,
the
right?
options the jurors have is what they just did. You let the court know. If the court gets the sense that there is any juror that is not participating in the process, you have offended the entire process of a jury trial. That's why we have alternates.
You can bounce them?
That's why we have alternates. You can remove that person and put someone else in who will actually deliberate. That's what deliberate means. We have to wrestle with the evidence.
But it won't be grounds for a mistrial or anything later, will it?
Well, if he stays on that jury and there is no unanimous verdict reached, that is a mistrial.
Okay, let's get really quickly to the second note then, and a couple hours went by, then this came out. If a recipient asks for a controlled substance and another person hands it over to them, are they distributing? What's the significance of this question? What is the signal to you?
Well, a few things. First of all, look at the order of the questions. The first note wasn't really a question, it was a complaint about a juror. The second note is an actual question, which says that at least 11 of them are talking through the process, so much so they are trying to define language, right, in some of these elements. So that tells me we know enough now not to get into jurors' minds, like what they may be thinking. But that tells me, going back to the first note, that person is not participating in a way that jurors are supposed to wrestle with evidence against one another and deliberate. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have another note today or by the end of the week about number juror 25.
Okay. But that question, though, does that lean more towards what the prosecution has been saying, or what does that tell you about where they could be swaying?
Well, I mean, it just tells me that they're talking about it.
Okay.
Does that seem all that academic?
No.
Right? That's not really super academic. Does that mean that did I just distribute that to you?
Right.
You know, it's not.
Hey, Shaka,
Can I have your pen, please?
you have some cocaine on you? Can I have it?
Well, hold on a second.
I mean, isn't that basically?
and if I handed it to you,
Yeah.
is that
a crime?
That's distribution. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's
All right, there you go.
absolutely. I distributed it. Yes,
But
absolutely.
I asked for it.
And I obliged you
Yeah,
by
that's
distributing it.
All right.
Somebody's going to chop this up and make this sound real
I know,
crazy. I just
yeah.
want you to know.
Yes, they will.
I'll be fired.
Do you have a prediction for how long, really quickly, they're going to take?
Do not underestimate the power of a short week. Okay.
Because there's a holiday coming up.
That's correct.
And do you think they want to
That's
go
correct.
on vacation or something?
I think they'd like to sort of be done with this. Perhaps fully engaged in their duty as jurors, but still would like to sort of resume real life.
Like, let's speed this up. They want to go to the beach.
Correct. And so if you don't have a verdict by Thursday, I would, it's saying something.
Yeah.
It's saying
All
something.
right, we'll probably have you back later this week, if not tomorrow. We'll come right back, 7:40.